are you doing, beloved?
Attention, attention, my black brothers. What I want y'all to do right now is take out the do-rag, the silky, tie it down. I want to see the waves glistening. If you got nappy hair, pick it. Don't let nobody discourage you.
Ariel.
Black boy.
Sister. How was your
Hey.
holiday? How was Thanksgiving? Girl, the holidays have passed.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Oh, Thanksgiving was great though. I spent it with my friend Lindsay and her mom and her girlfriend, and it was absolutely delightful. We had a good time, nice chat, nice food, and then I came home and laid down somewhere and put my feet up, child.
Did you have any nasty ass food?
No, it was all delicious. And it wasn't for about four of us, so if anything had been nasty, I doubt I'd admit it.
You would not admit it if it was nasty because it was for y'all?
There were four of us. Absolutely not. It was all delicious. I do want to be clear about that. But had anything not been good, I would take that to the grave.
Okay. You know, I've had some Thanksgivings where things were trash. I'm just playing. I've done
Families worth the
Friendsgivings.
people? Sure. If it were my family, I'd be honest. You know, I'd be like, this wasn't good.
This was not. No, my family actually came here for the first time. My family, they've never, celebrated. It was fun. I didn't cook for their asses. I was like, no, y'all are going to go out to eat, which is nobody. So in DC, I don't know if you know this, people eat out a lot for the holidays because people are traveling in and things like that. So I found this very low-key restaurant at the National Harbor. And at first I was skeptical because I had never ate it before. And when I went there, it was like a part of a hotel. But then I went in and it was really nice. The food was good. They had bottomless mimosas for $40 for the whole table. And I was just and my mom and I are very picky. Oh, baby, I got drunk. Okay. I was like, y'all don't got to drink, but I'm going to take this paposa. I'm going to take these mimosas to the motherfucking head. But it was really good to have my family here and things of that nature. So it was good. My parents said they'll come back again. And I enjoyed that. But what brought you joy? What's brought you joy, sister?
This week, a couple of things. Today I had a really interesting conversation with somebody on Twitter, of all places, about sex, about healthy sex. So that was really nice. I honestly was because he had mentioned that it's difficult for him to have sex without it being tied to his emotions, and I empathize. That's something that I can relate to. And just I was talking to him about things he can do or things that I have done to sort of wrap my mind around that experience. And it was a really good time to connect. And Twitter is not usually a place where I find people connect easily. They're usually just fussing at each other. So that brought me some joy. And I got some cool news from my family this week that has been on my spirit heavy. So once that's shared, I'll be very happy. But I'm just feeling good. I feel great. And I'm here with you.
We love that. I'm glad. No, that's really, I can't wait to hear the news. I can't wait for, if you share it with the listeners, I can't wait to hear that. What brought me joy this week? This week has been very busy for me, but I actually went on a plant date the other day to the terrarium. Is that how you say it? Like a terrarium? I don't know.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. And it was really nice. Plants, I think, are starting to become a thing that I really, really enjoy now.
Good.
And just to be in the space with all the greenery and learn about the benefits of plants. I know some plants are good for oxygen and all of those things. It was really nice to be in that space. And then also we had our holiday closing party and there's bonuses that are coming from that. So I'm just that brought me joy to know I'm getting some motherfucking money. But I think the date was a kind of interesting thing to go to a terrarium.
You had a good time?
I had a good time. No, I had a really good time. So the guy, he enjoys it. So I actually found out about the place. Shout out to Plant House in Alexandria. And I saw some of my other friends going. And I was like, he likes plants. Let's go. And I had never, done anything like that before. So it was really fun to see somebody else excited. Also, me get excited about plants.
Was that a good time for y'all to bond and get closer?
Yeah. No, it was really good. I definitely am going to hang out with him again and explore that relationship and see what that looks like. But
love to see it. Look at you trying. You were trying to avoid that. I'm like, okay, screw the plans, honey. How'd that date go? I want to know the tea, honey. Well, good. I'm glad it went well.
Thank you. I'll keep everybody posted about where this goes. But
Thank you.
What is up, everybody? It is your boy Lord Devery.
And I'm Derwin King.
And welcome back to another episode of That Black Boy Joy, where we create a space where Black boys can be themselves and
so much more.
Hi, we're back.
Yes, we are.
I'm excited to do this thing with you.
Me too. Let's go ahead and do like our Black Boy Joy spotlight so that we can jump into our conversation for the day.
Of course, love. So this week's That Black Boy Joy Spotlight would go to a young man by the name of Dwayne Perkins. He is an American comedian, writer, actor, and producer. He is well known for being one of the writers and producers of the 2022 hit horror comedy, The Blackening, which I heard is actually getting a sequel. So shout out to them.
Yeah.
And he also has a reoccurring role on the Upshaws with, I think, Kim Fields and Mike Epps on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to him. He's very expressive about his identity and who he is. He's unapologetic. He's very handsome as well. So if anybody is, looking for some eye candy,
so cute.
You all should definitely check out The Blackening. Look him up. Also check out the Upshaws and things like that. But we just want to send love and flowers to Dwayne Perkins for being an amazing Black boy in the field that he is right now.
Yeah, he's really charismatic on screen too. Like I saw The Blackening in theaters, and I was just like, oh my God, he's so cute and enjoyable to watch.
Yeah,
that had a lot of good laughs in it. There were some moments where I was just like, but most of it I was laughing out loud at. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, because I also like that he played like an unconventional Black gay character in it. Like it wasn't like the typical trope. So I enjoyed that. And then also like it was pretty funny to me. I wasn't expecting I haven't seen a rare Black horror film except for what's it called, Scary Movie and all that stuff like that.
Yeah.
So their spin on it. And it was a huge hit in the box office and people were very receptive of it. So
I'm very happy to know that.
I was like, shout out to him and shout out to just like the film and just like all his future endeavors. So, yes.
So I want to get into the topic. I wanted to talk about this today because, as you know, I watch Girlfriends like every couple months and I've probably seen it about 80 times now. But what I've noticed about the way I consume media is that, my life experiences and my wisdom changes how I view those things.
Yeah.
And what really stood out to me more recently as I was watching season 3 and transitioning into season 4 is the relationship between Joan and Tony. Because you really see their friendship change from season to season. And then it made me wonder how their friendship had changed even off screen from the time that they were in elementary school up until the demise of their friendship at the end of season 6, right? Every time you think about it, doesn't it make you sad?
I was like, Jesus, they were so good to me. And then season 6 came and I said,
But you got to watch the behind the scenes stuff. You have to watch like their directorial cuts and everything because they mention that there is a shift that happens at the end of season 3, that Joan and Tony's friendship takes a dark turn. And it's because of the jealousy that like Joan showed Tony about the wedding. So it got me thinking, how do we make space for our friendships, right? What happens in our lives that leads us in adulthood to separate from people that we love, even people that we've had in our lives for over 20 years? And because I had to think about like, how am I assessing this differently as I've had friendships from the age of, 3 to now. And, I looked at it one way when I was in college and, friendship meant this to me. But then I realized that friendship means something completely different to me now that I'm not in college, right? Now that I'm transitioning into my 30s. So I wanted us to take the time today to explore friendships. Now, you remember we had a similar conversation back in 2019.
Episode 29.
And we said we would come back. So this is part 2.
I'm excited because things have changed. In regards to us approaching our 30s, what friendships look like. Also, it's been a few years. That was 2019 when we talked about that. Things have shifted. So I'm excited to revisit. And I think friendship is like always an evolving relationship or dynamic. So it's never just like a one and done. You have to continuously recircle and revisit those things. So I'm excited I think this is one of the first episodes we revisited one of our topics as well, like intentionally.
That's
intentional.
what I'm
So
really
yeah.
excited about too, because it really gives us a chance to sort of like do a check-in. Like I'm gonna go back and listen to that episode and then listen to this one and see,
Yeah.
what changes we've made. So I have a few questions as we begin this conversation, and my first one is: can you remember your first friend?
Mm. So I remember like when I think like my low key like ride or die friend, I remember like going into the 7th grade.
Okay.
And it was a female, but like like in elementary and middle school, I can't necessarily like pinpoint that like best friend like directly because I think we were always just like kitties and stuff like that. But, like I know my going into 7th grade, there was this girl. Shout out to Dynasty, we're still best friends. That like was very unapologetic. She went to this like Catholic school. She was very like very uptight, very like I'm like you was. She literally was like one of those girls that you see from a TV show that like was very like snobby, but like we went to this like summer camp and she like spoke out to like the girls from the inner city. Like she didn't know what she was doing. She was just like talking to the girls like out the side of her neck. And I had to defend her because they was like, girl, we're gonna beat you up because you think you're pretty, you think you all that. And I remember me and her, like, I had to like stop her from like, I was like, girl, chill out. You don't know what these girls are capable of. You're a gorgeous girl. They would cut your face up. And she was like, I don't care. I want to say what I want to say. And I think I resonated with her, and like to this day, we're best friends, like still to this day. But I think that's one person I can vividly remember being like really, 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 really good friends with, that I like knew we had each other's back. But I can't remember any when I was like younger.
But that was from like 6th or 7th grade?
Yeah, 6th or 7th grade, yeah.
I do remember my first friend. I think it was my friend Shay. She's the one I've mentioned that I've been friends with for like 20-something years. I know that but like we were friends because our moms were friends. So like the whole, and then if I think about any of the friends I had in elementary school, I found that like it was, it was like, oh, we both like the same thing, right? We like this. We like playing with Play-Doh at school or whatever. Like our friendships are based on like shared activities or something really like small, right? But those relationships are like kind of inconsequential for the most part because you're 3 or 4.
You don't know. It's just like fun. Yeah.
Yeah, but then when I think about like one of my first best friends, I think of like this girl Allison, and I remember we just like enjoyed talking to each other. And like we would go to each other's, or at least I would go to her house as a little white girl. And I would go on, yeah, I know, right?
That was like you and this white girls.
I would go with her family to bowling, and like she cared enough about my interest that I remember her giving me an Ashanti CD in 5th grade for my birthday. Like we had a really good friendship, but like we just enjoyed having a good time with each other and just talking. And I really don't think that, like, I remember that I have these really good memories, these positive memories about that time. But when I think about the first time I made a friend that I would like really take with me, like a real friend, I would say that I got that in like 8th and 9th grade. So it was around the time that I was sort of coming into myself. So like, when did you realize that you were making real friends? Because you mentioned that you were still friends with the one you made in 6th or 7th grade.
Yeah.
Was that it?
No, that wasn't it. I think for me, I struggled a lot with my identity. So I navigated like, I was also really, really close to my sister. So like my sister's like really one of my OG best friends. But I think for me, I had a hard time navigating like just relationships in general, just because I didn't trust people's like intentions with me and just like overall like interactions. So I think she was the first person I was able to just be as queer and just quirky and unique with that did it. And I went to a lot of inner city schools. So she was the first friend I had that wasn't from the inner city. So like she was around individuals that, weren't as like stereotypical or like, things of that nature. So she was really able to be like, oh, what you're doing is fine. Like, oh, we know people that's like that, from my school, which I wasn't used to that. So, because I was like always around niggas.
Yeah.
I wasn't like a nigga. So I think that was one of my first friends that I was like, oh.
And you were how old?
So going into 6th or 7th grade, girl, I do not do math.
12, 13?
12, 13. And we met at a summer camp.
So at that point, it's about being able to be yourself. Like there's an identity. So because I've read somewhere that in like early adolescence, we really start to make our relationships around identity, about like how we identify. and finding friends who fit like a certain kind of social group.
Yep.
What is it? Identity versus role confusion is the psychological stage with Erickson. I don't know if you remember reading about like our psychosocial stages or whatever.
Yeah, it was my degree. Our degrees, girl.
So that's so interesting because I think that's exactly what it was for me at that time too, is being able to sort of relax, like a group of people I can relax around and identify with. And even though it does seem that we tailor our behaviors to fit that social group, because people tend to do that in high school, identity seemed to be the really important thing there. But what about the people that you realized you would take through the rest of your life?
I think the ones I would take through the rest of my life, I think it was we kept up to date with each other. I think it was we really were intentional about really creating a relationship and really like asking about how we were, or really trying to be invested in each other's life. I think for me, I grew up with people not really asking my opinions or my thoughts, or like really what Devery wanted or they thought about a lot. So like the people that I've brought through my life are people that have really invested in like, girl, what you doing? Like, let's see some support. So I think a lot of people that I've carried through my life have seen me at my highs and my lows. I've been through the ringer with that I've shown like hella support. Like Vari, I've been friends with Vari since I was in high school. We went to high school together, went to college together, and lived in DC. Tiffany, we went through the ringer. Dynasty, we went through the ringer. So I think it's just people that I have like moments where I've like was at my lowest and I've seen them like pick me up. If that makes sense as well.
That sounds like support.
Yeah, I was ultimately like the people that I've seen that genuinely show support throughout my relationship. And I also wanted to ask you, like, what did you like about Shay? I wanted to ask you, like, what was the reason that you and Shay became friends before we like added up?
So I can definitely say for Shay and I from elementary school, and Shay is a friend that like we were friends at 3, and then I moved, we lost contact. And then when I moved back to like the county that I was from, we went to middle school together again. So that was kind of when our friendship started back. With she and I were very similar. We had a lot of the same interests. We had a lot of the same personality traits. We obviously had memories from our childhood. So we just had common interests and common expressions, and we saw the world similarly.
Yeah.
So like she was just really easy for me to be around. And I felt like she knew me because our families were intertwined. Like her sister's my cousin. Like it's a familial thing. So it felt like one of those relationships that was just always kind of going to be there somehow. And yeah, I mean, she's still really important to me. Like I am always keeping tabs on how her life has changed. We're not as close as like me and my best friends are today, but like she's still a staple for me.
Okay. No, I was thinking that I was like, because you've been friends with her for so long, and I was curious of like, how has that been? Y'all grew up together, y'all went through ups and downs, and you still consider her a very, very close friend, and you all don't connect as much. And that's the same thing with my friend Dynasty. Is me and Dynasty aren't because of proximity. You're close to people because of proximity, but once you hit those monumental changes in your life, graduating from college, moving away, going into your things start to trickle. So it's the same thing as we move with Dynasty. And also my friend Anthony, y'all have chatted with Tone on the show before. But like those type of relationships, we're not in the same vicinity, but we've been friends for decades. But we're still friends, but not as close. So I was curious about you and Shay.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because I want to talk about some of those things you mentioned later in this conversation. Yeah. I think when it comes to my friendship with Shay, I realized because we did so much hanging out together in high school, and I think your needs are pretty superficial in high school. Like you're just looking for people to like, hang out with. You're looking for people to like be similar to. And even though there's an intimacy there, you're not looking for, or at least I wasn't looking for a deep intimacy, partly because I was in the closet. So like, even though I had close friends, kind of dealing with my sexuality meant that everyone was still at like there was a wall around myself, But I can remember there being a time in my relationship with Shay when I was considering ending our friendship. And that was right around the time that I had gotten to college and had come out of the closet. Because I think being in the closet was stopping me from making that sort of next step in my relationships, that actual real intimacy. And I think being free in that way meant that I wanted to be close to people. Like I was like, oh, this is a new closeness I've never experienced before. I'm just letting people see me for who I am. And I wasn't getting that from her. I wasn't like, I can remember sitting down and thinking, I'm being honest with my friends and I'm telling them truths about myself and I'm telling them about my life. And we're not just talking about other people all the time. And we're not talking about bullshit. We're actually like giving a chance to be vulnerable with each other. And I noticed that she wasn't doing the same. And I can remember it was like the summer after my sophomore year or maybe freshman year. And I remember sitting down and being like, I think I need to end this friendship with you.
I had the same conversation with Dynasty at a point in our relationship as well. And it was around the same time that I came out. And what I more so say, shout out to David Johnson, invited in. And it was my second semester of college. I started to invite people in, and she really didn't understand, like queer, like the identity of me, loving men, she was very much into like the religion and aspect of it. So I had, decided to pull back in the relationship with her. And it was hurtful because that was a relationship that like I didn't expect to see a change with me inviting her into it, but I knew that like she was at that time very much, she believed in God. I still believe in God, and she does too. But like the aspect of man and man should not be a thing. It's man and woman. So at a time, me and Dynasty, she respected me, but she didn't tolerate my sexuality. And for me, if at that point I was in the beginning of it, so I was like, if you can't take me for all of me, then I will not communicate with you.
I know that's right.
We hadn't communicated for some time. I remember I don't think we talked the remaining of that semester. And then I think there was something that was traumatic that happened, and I reached out to her, and we revisited, and she, I started to get into the understanding of who I was, and I didn't change. But it was the same thing in me as I retreated in that relationship. It was very hard for me because I was the first friend that I genuinely remember was like, you're my real friend.
Is that something that you guys were able to bounce back from?
Yeah, we've had a lot of transparent conversations, and I also had to realize where she was coming from in her space and like the understanding of it. I mean, I didn't agree with it at the time, and I still honestly don't, but like I respected her opinions at that point. But I still chose to like, if that's what you feel, I can't change that. But I know for my identity, I'm growing into it. I can't have any people that are going to put any type of energy that I'm not, comfortable with, in that space. So we were able to bounce back from it. She definitely is more of accepting of it. And like, I think she's went through her own experiences in life and has grown. And we talk about it a lot. I was like, we really went through a tough patch when I invited you in. A really, really rocky path. And she's like, yeah, I remember. And I apologized because I was very insensitive.
Nice.
To you at that point. And I was like, and I respected what you were saying at that point, but it was like listening to my friend say she did not no longer want to, she didn't get what I did behind closed doors. It kind of was hurtful because I knew that was going to be happening, because I knew, with the realities of inviting people in, some people will not accept it. It was just to hurt from the person that I genuinely was like my first real friend see, that dynamic shift. So
it's really interesting because I feel like, because my mother was really frustrated with me when I had that conversation with Shay. She didn't feel like it was necessary for me to end that friendship. But I think what happened for me is that I had to take stock of what I needed, right? Like at this point that I now am saying this is who I am, and I have these new relationships in college, And I feel like when you can be friends with someone who sees you for who you are and accepts you as you are entirely, that sort of sets a new expectation. Like, I don't know how it was for you after you started inviting people in, but once I started making friends who had already known me as that person, I started to feel this new affirming space. Like, I made a lot of really good friends in college, and most of them either met me just before I started inviting people in or had already known me to be the person, you know, who had been completely outright with who I was. And I started to then assess the relationships I had prior to college, and I wanted to get them up to speed. I was like, what is it that I need? I needed to feel safe in my relationships. I needed to be able to be 100. I was no longer interested in keeping any secrets. I needed to be 100% honest. But then I realized if I want to offer that in my friendships, I think I'm looking to have that reciprocated.
Yeah, I think for me it was the same thing. I think that like my second semester of college, I was very much open into my identity, and I think I was still, of course, I was still growing into who I was. I was a second semester. I just came out. I didn't know what that meant to like navigate because we didn't have really no structure to like being queer. But I think for me it was like, what do those relationships look like post me inviting people in? You know, what is that? What do I need from people in this space? And I think that that was a really great point that you're thinking about was, what did I need? And I think for me, I needed people that were not going to fog up my journey to this identity. Like I didn't know what it was to be queer and young and black in this rural ass town. You know, like I didn't know what it was, but I didn't need people that were going to come in and try to plant these type of negative seeds in my space, or just like allow me to exist in trial and error certain I did things in this type of space. So for me, it was definitely, I needed people that were, if I fall, they were going to pick me up. You know, they were going to come to me when, you know, I needed support or aid. I think I was definitely in need of like, this identity is raw and real right now because like this is the first time I'm going into a space that is foreign. So I definitely knew that those relationships, and with the relationships that I had before, I wanted them to come onto this journey with me. I'm like, this is so exciting. Like, I am finding like not hiding anything anymore. Like the things that y'all said about me were right, even though I didn't believe it at the time.
Right.
So it was very exciting. But what I realized was those friends no longer joined me. Those friends before I invited people in were not the ones that stayed with me after I invited people in. The only person that stayed was Dynasty. And that was, we came back, we recovered. Like my male best friend at that time, we never really recovered. Our other friend never really recovered. Like it just was something that just after I invited people in, which is the realities of when you come out, you know, and invite people in, it's that the thing. But like Dynasty was the only friend that I had post coming out, minus my sister. And that was even a conversation itself that really stayed. And Vari, but Vari, I wasn't out when Vari met me in high school, but then fast forward to college, when I told her, she was like, "Girl, we already knew that." So Vari like knew me before, but she wasn't in that process. I had already been a year in to my identity at that point. So
that's really interesting. I have to wonder too then if like the guys that fell off, if that was an identity thing, like our roles in this relate, like they don't match up, right? Like who I am doesn't really, and what my focus is right now, how I'm presenting myself, this doesn't really align with what I've got going on. And I wonder, because I feel like there are people who still, we like have that, right? People who don't associate with people who aren't like them today. Sometimes I wonder if that's them being stuck in this sort of adolescent version of themselves, because I don't think that we have to be like all of our friends. I think that we can be very different from people and still be friends with them, depending on how those people meet our immediate needs. But if your immediate needs are simply just to be able to see yourself in someone else, then of course you're not going to maintain a relationship as a straight black man with someone who just came out as, you know, who just invited you into their truth about being a same gender loving individual.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because I know that you still have friends that are, I mean, you have straight friends. Shout out to Jared, one of your friends, your good friends, Jared. And you know that was post you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coming out.
So Jared and I became friends my sophomore year of college because we were both in leadership of the Black cultural. Nope, that's not it. One change at a time. It was it was a community service organization, and so like we were working toward a common interest, I think, and we had to spend a lot of time together because we were doing like bank runs. I was the treasurer and he was the vice president of the organization at the time. So naturally, like whenever we were organizing events, we were spending time together and we were just talking. So philosophically, like I found that we saw things very similarly, or at least I thought that his perspective was really interesting.
Yeah.
And I just saw him as an intellectual. And so I started, and he was honestly the first time I had ever had a Black male friend. I mean, like that was shocking to me. And you're talking about this large, like football player, right? Like, and he's quiet. And like, I remember the first time I ever met him, I never thought we were going to be friends because he acted like he didn't see me in the room. I'm dead ass serious. I get on him about this all the time. But he acted like he didn't see me. But I mean, it was just a matter of like him being able to stimulate, like having stimulating conversation, and really being able to feel seen and appreciated by another Black man. And I didn't realize that that was a need I had as well. So that was a friendship that started basically because we were able to talk to each other as humans, but we were nothing alike. Like if we were met in high school, we would never have been friends. I would have hated him. He would have hated me.
He was the jock. He was the football jock at that time.
I hated jocks. I hated jocks.
I was a jock, sister. I was a jock, but I wasn't that type of jock. You would have hated me. You probably would have hated me.
I was a theater kid, and so I resented the sports program at our school because they got all the funding and it was annoying.
We did. I was both. I was both in. I was a theater kid, and also like after theater or before theater. After practice, I would go. After track practice, I would go to my community theater program. So
we love a well-rounded crowd.
We love that.
So, do you have any friends that are like older than you? Because I know that we were talking about how our individual needs change in friendship, but I wonder like how that's reflected when we have friends who are in different areas than like age groups than us.
Yeah,
I know that I do. Like, I tend to interact well with people across generations. But what about you?
So, how old? Well,
so
let's go ahead. Let's go into that.
I feel like my oldest friend is like, my oldest like acquaintance is probably like 58. But like, I am really good at relating to people.
You are. That's one thing about you, sister. You're very, very good at that. For me, no. To be honest, I think that's something I've discussed. Is I don't even have a mentor. I wouldn't necessarily say like a genuine person that I've like considered like an elder, air quotes elder. But no, I am that to others. Like me and Tone are, I think 4 years apart, 3 to 4 years apart. But no, and I've always thought about that is relationships that aren't. I know, no, and I've always thought about that. Like, why are my friends all like in close proximity or like younger?
Well, like, I think to go along with this topic about like getting basing our friendships off of our needs, I think that when we make friends, what is really important is compatibility. I like to look at my friendships similarly to how I look at like the functioning of a relationship. And sure, you can really want to be in a relationship with someone, but if they're if the way that they are, the way they see the world isn't compatible with the way that you do, like it doesn't have to be the same, but are they compatible? Do they mesh well? And like my needs are often being, seen, feeling intimacy, growth oriented. I'm super growth oriented and I want to see that reflected in my relationship. So being friends with people who are older gives me some insight about, experiences I've never had, maybe some advice about how I should handle things. And it sort of meets this need I have internally to have these sort of like adult and mature conversations with people. Whereas at least in college, this was true. Whereas like people didn't really give a fuck about talking about the things I wanted to talk about. Like they wanted to drink and have fun and, I was just like, oh, I want to have philosophical debates. Let's do that.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing about it is like I'm very social. I'm very much like, I talk to a lot of different people. Like I play a lot of different sports, but like besides like I haven't had people that have stuck to like being like I have acquaintances by all means, but like best friends, like I don't. And I've always thought about that as like I want a mentor, but like navigating that type of like conversation and like also like what that looks like. I think I've had friends that are like, I'm 30, so I think my oldest friend is like 32, but like we're all in the same like vicinity of ages. So yeah, I wish I had somebody in that space, but it's also like me making friends has changed from my early 20s to now. Where we were at in episode 20, 29, my friends that I had at that time was abundant. And I was over here in this space of like, I want quantity, not quality, and
I remember you saying that.
I wanted all the friends I could have. These motherfuckers could be disloyal. These people could not talk to me, but I was like, I have a friend. But I had to put in a retrospect and when I went through that moment in 2021, when I had panic attacks and I was like, going through all of those people, was who are the people that are really going to come and cheer me on when I'm at my lowest? And I think it made me have this like this realization of like, yeah, you can have all of these fake ass people in your circle, but like these real ones that are here, these people that you're like, that are here and that you're not oblivious to, you're not taking them for granted. So I think what I've wanted in my, like now I want older friends. I do. So, people that are older that want to be, friends with me.
Why? What's changed?
I think my realization of what friendship looks like. And I think it's been pivotal this year specifically. I can go into like numerous examples of, I didn't think people were invested in my life at one point. I thought I was just that friend that showed up for everybody. I was a person that they would call to talk about everything, but like not the person that they really wanted to know who and what Devery was or is. So that was really a challenge. So like, I play all these sports. I didn't invite people to my activities. Didn't even think that they would show up. I'm like, oh, this is not their thing. This is not, they're too busy. But I talked to my therapist about it. It was like, if you don't allow people in, how will they be able to be in? Like how will you, you're going into this mindset of like, oh, I don't have friends, but like, you're showing signs that you haven't even attempted it, right? You wanted them to read your mind. So I got into this space of challenging myself to be like, just send down an invite. Hey, I have a kickball game today. If you want to come, you could come. If not, that's perfectly fine. Hey, I have volleyball. Hey, all these things. And I really started to see people show up. And it was starting to see like, wow, I do. And also during my panic attacks, Vari, Tiffany, all those people, I was like, oh, people are really in my corner. I'm just so blinded by these temporary highs of like new friends, right? Like these new type of space that like, if you invite people in and stop trying to feel like you can't talk about yourself and make yourself small, then like these relationships can grow and be, nourished. And I think this year was definitely a moment for me because I've seen my friends be proud, of me and see where I've gone and, want to be there. And I was like, oh, it wasn't that bad. I didn't invite them. So, yeah.
So now you've identified that for you, it sounds like emotional support is like a large part of what makes someone a real friend for you. So do you feel like those needs are being met today?
Absolutely.
Nice.
I do because I am allowing myself to be emotional. I grew up my parents are military, as you all talk about, as I talk about a lot in I wasn't allowed to emote. That just wasn't something my parents had worked a muscle of with themselves. What is this emotion that Devery is feeling? So for me, I had to exercise communicating without the fear of being judged or invisible or disliked. I had to just let it out and let it be. And I think that was something I was missing as a child was I just really, really talked about this recently with somebody. It was relationships that I'm wanting right now. I can't ask for them to be what my family should have been. I am looking for them to be what I really want right now. Like what I want for my friends is not what I want for my family. That's a whole different conversation. Like the trauma that they gave me, that is what it is, But what I want from friends right now was really those people that are going to challenge me to be emotional. Really push me to get into that uncomfortable space of Devery, what do you want? Because I'm not used to that. So that's what I'm looking for now is like, girl, tell me to speak up.
I'm smiling so brightly because I think this is fitting a narrative for you of like stepping into yourself and like really being comfortable and being completely whole in who you are and celebrating that. And I love it that you are I love it that your friendships are reflecting that change in you and that you're expecting that from them. And I think also I had a thought while you were saying that you're no longer expecting your relationships, your friendships to fulfill what you want your family to. I think it's probably because you're looking for justice. Like you're looking for some sort of restorative justice with your family. Based on the history, right? And so you can come into your friendships with the freshness and not carrying the baggage of your familial drama and trauma with them, and allowing them to start anew, and like giving them an opportunity to meet your needs today in the present, as they exist. So that's really nice. How would you address it if you
I'm like, okay.
Are my needs being met? Let me see. Yeah, I think so. I feel like, I was fortunate enough to meet some really good people in my early 20s and late teens that really sort of set the tone for me of like for what my expectations were moving forward, because everyone showed up as themselves and encouraged me to, right? Like, so I've gone through so many changes in my life over the last 10 years, and my friends have really bear witness to that. And some of them were there to support, some of them were there to entertain me while I was going through those things. And sometimes really all you do need is someone to witness you from point A to point B, right? Because I rely on myself for emotional support. So I feel like my needs are being met today. I don't have any complaints, and I've learned how to communicate when I do need something from a friend. Like I have learned how to, what I really need to do, because I just told you that I'm able to emotionally support myself. What I do need to do is give other people an opportunity to support me emotionally. But that is something that I like am still seeing as semi-burdensome, because I feel things so deeply. So it'll be a while before I start giving that to another person to work with. And honestly, I'm almost hoping that that's something I achieve in a relationship instead of my friendships.
I think both. And I think my moment was when I, my panic disorders and my panic attacks, and I had to let my friends know why I wasn't eating, why I was taking myself secretly to the emergency room, like why I needed to like rush to their aid. Like I had to let people in. And that was one of the moments like I didn't know what that felt like, was to be the friend that needed emotional support. So you're looking for that now, and I've like experienced it. And it's still challenging, to this day. Is like right now in dating, telling people what you want in those spaces is like a scary thing. It's like I don't want you to run away, or like relationships is like what you want. But I think it is appropriate, because you do what I always tell people is like, you in any relationship, you don't know what it's like if you don't go through like the ringer, like what that looks like. Like everybody's going to fight, everybody's going to tussle, but the important thing is how do you recover from it? And I think I've talked about this so many times. So like in friendships, like when you express your needs, how do they respond to it?
Yes.
Like, what do they say to it? Like, I've had friends gaslight me. I've had friends tell me, and I'm no longer friends with them.
Right.
Y'all, look, some of y'all know who I'm talking about. But in actuality, like, it's the truth. Like, when you ask, when your needs are not being met and you address those to friends, you will see who genuinely is in that corner when you don't see them respond in that way. Was that your question to me? What was your? I'm sorry.
Absolutely, no, that's exactly it. That was about to be my question to you, because I think it is important to be able to communicate what you need. Well, to know at all points if you can, right? Because we can't know everything all the time, but to at least be semi-aware of what you need in a friendship at any given time, and then to measure, those needs against your relationships. Okay. How, does this person, and we don't need the same things from every person. I want to say that too, right? Like I don't need from, one of my best friends what I need from the other. We're not all capable of offering the same thing. So I might need emotional support from this friend, but then I might need like, okay, you have the practical advice, so I'm going to go to you. I need you for that, right? Or I just need someone to bounce ideas off of, so I go to you for this. Or I need someone who's in the exact same space as me to just empathize and make me feel less alone. But if we're not all doing our parts, right, then it's important to me to identify those, because even though I don't think we can all give 100% in our relationships all the time, if you notice a pattern of your friend not like doing their part and you're now in a one-sided relationship, that's an issue for me. I can't do one-sided relationships.
No.
I've learned that, like, okay, so this is the kind of relationship I have with this person, right? So if it's two-sided, it feels good. If it starts to feel draining, the chances are I'm doing more of my part and that person isn't doing their part. And I've ended relationships after feeling like I was putting in a lot of emotional labor, a lot of physical labor, and then like just energetically giving more of myself than that person was giving back to me. And I was like, oh, this isn't going to work for me. And as you know, like the last year has been completely reflective for me. And if there were ever a time where it was more important for me to be like, I don't have space for this.
Yeah.
It was then.
Yeah. Do you have no-goes? Like now, like with relationships now you've been through that moment. Are there like things that like in your friendship be like, if you're not providing this, or like what is that? Like, girl, get out my face.
Sure. So I have learned that I don't really do well with emotional immaturity because I've expressed on this platform before, and it is a major theme. My mental health is a major theme in my life. My emotional regulation is really important. So I can't be in a space that feels like I'm moving backwards emotionally, or that I'm being or I'm in a situation where like there's no accountability, because I have to hold myself to this standard. And in order to continue doing that, I kind of have to lead with that mindset. So I'm going to look at all problems through that mindset, and I can empathize, right? I can do that. I'm still good at empathy. But what I can't do is sit in a cycle of hopelessness that is self-induced.
Yeah.
Like if I know there's a solution and I'm saying there's a solution and I'm going to help you through that problem, that's probably what I'm going to do. But I can't do like the coddling. I can't really do that. That's not something that I'm really capable of doing. So that's a no-no for me. Another no-no for me is expecting me to do a lot for you, and then you can't even meet the few needs that I have. So if you're a great example,
why you say few? Why few? Like, girl, don't you diminish it. That's what made me think about that when you said the few needs.
Because I really do try not to put too much of my needs on other people, right? I try to meet my own needs first and then see where I actually cannot do a thing without other people, right?
Yeah.
And also I assess what people are capable of before I try, because you don't want to expect too much of someone who can't deliver, right?
Yeah.
And I had my roommate that I lived with when I first moved here. That was the sort of relationship that we had, where I started noticing like socially I was doing a lot of the work, right? And then he was getting a lot of benefits from it. And then, like I was listening to him explain some of the things that were really difficult for him. And I had no problem doing that because we were friends.
Yeah.
And sometimes he would listen to me. So that felt like, that felt like we were both putting in the same amount of work.
Yeah.
But what was really important for me was needing emotional support, when I was going through grief. And he wasn't able to do that. And I knew that. I knew what his limitations were. And so that wasn't really my expectation. But then I started noticing that like my house was a mess all the time. And he wasn't like cleaning, right? So like on top of you not being an emotional resource to me, you're not making my life any easier. And then on top of that, he actually was asking me to do more things for him. Things that
I remember this.
Do you remember this? That he asked me to drive from my friend's apartment that I was clearing out, and pick him up from work and take him to our house, or pick him up from our house and then take him to work. And then go back to what I was doing. And in my mind, I'm like, you don't see that I have like all of this going on. I have this emotional baggage, like that I'm dealing with, this emotional pain. And I'm also like physically doing labor for this person who's now deceased because I love them. And you are asking me to come do labor for you. And you have not even asked me how I'm doing. You haven't even given me an opportunity to just talk about how broken I feel right now. Right.
Yeah.
So that's a no-no. That I know that was a long, but that was a no-no. I can't deal with you being so emotionally unaware that you can't even ask yourself or ask me how you can be a good friend to me in that moment. If you can't even stop to ask me in a time of need, there may not matter, another time may not matter, but in my time of need, you can't ask me how you can be a good friend to me. Why are we friends?
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing for me. It's social intelligence. Definitely is when I need aid. Are you there? Are you able to aid and help and support? Is the conversation always about you? Do you check in with me? And then another thing is I've interacted with is situational jealousy.
Yes.
Um, and it can be blatant. It can be passive. Like specifically with queer men. You
Okay.
know the conversation of certain things not being to their liking or like, oh, this is happening in those spaces are no-nos. Like, I don't play with those questions. I don't play with competition and relationships at all. Like, I've had those type of
I
relationships
might have to
before.
fight you on that.
Let's fight then. But I don't care. But yeah, no-nos for me is I don't need any questioning of like loyalty. I don't need to feel like there's like competition, and also like I said, like no accountability, nor asking me how I am. Like if you're calling me and talking about yourself and then hanging up, those are really really no nos to me. But what was you trying to fight me for?
I want to push back on that because you made a good point that with gay black male relationships, that sort of competition and jealousy thing can arise.
Yeah.
It has been important to me to work through that, right?
Yeah.
And I realize that not everybody is capable of doing that. I've seen people do some nasty things out of envy, and I'm not that person. And I don't want to invite that energy into my life. But I think that that competition can be very natural between us. I'm not certain why.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's because we're such a minority, if we are afraid that
No,
the
yeah.
opportunities are not available to us in abundance or what, if it's like a
Yeah.
lack mindset. But we have a tendency to compete with each other. But I don't think that that should get in the way of our friendships because I think that jealousy is a natural human emotion. And that if we're emotionally intelligent enough, we can interrogate it, disempower it,
Yeah.
and do what we need for ourselves to push through it.
Yeah, I think that's a valid thing. Like for me, I've told my friends before, like I'm a human. Like I am jealous of you getting an attention that I, ideally would have wanted, but I would never act out of
Yes.
malice or ill
Yes.
intention. Like I would acknowledge, yes, I'm being jealous, but I would never be like, oh, since I'm jealous, I'm going to sabotage
Yes.
this. Like
Exactly.
I'm not going to be like, oh, let's leave this party because I'm not getting the attention you are. No, never. Girl, I'm human. Bitch, okay, you getting all this energy. Shout out to you. Like, work, bitch, I'm over here in the corner. Let me drink my drink. Let me mind my business. But I would never be like, oh, I see you getting attention. Let's leave. Or, oh, this party, like, oh, this person was even cute. Whatever. Like, like I've had, people be like that. Oh,
Caddy.
like, oh, I've talked to him before. It's not even, I've had those type of things. And it's like, girl, no.
I'm gonna say that's a no-no for me too, though. But I think I would have called it something different. That goes along with that emotional immaturity for me because I feel like if you can admit to yourself that you're jealous, then you can actually do what you and I are talking about, which is like not let it get in the way of your friendship. Joan.
Yeah. Like I'm jealous. Okay, but let me not sabotage something because it's an immaturity. Like everybody has immature moments.
Yes.
But it's the issue of, are you going to act on that shit? Like, girl, did you really just destroy the wedding because you were immature? Like, just let her be happy. Like, it's not your thing, So it's people will.
Well, now that you've brought up this, because I know we should close really relatively soon. I wanted to read this quote I found.
Okay, let's get into it.
From Dr. William Rollins of Ohio University.
Ohio.
I knew you would perk up at that. The ideal of people's expectations for friendship is always in tension with the reality of their lives. The real bittersweet aspect is that young adulthood begins with all this time for friendship, and friendship just having this exuberant, profound importance for figuring out who you are and what's next. And you find at the end of young adulthood now, you don't have the time for the very people who helped you make all those decisions. That, when I read that, it kind of like, I remember I was just like, oh.
That's tea. That's tea right there. That's tea.
Specifically, the whole, the ideal of people's expectations for friendship is always in tension with the reality of their lives. I thought about where I am now. I moved to New Orleans, and I had all these dreams and all these ideas and all of these things I wanted to experience with my friends who I've always felt so close with, but I had to move. Like I felt in my being that I needed to relocate 1,000 miles away, right?
Yeah.
And now the reality is I can't hang out with these people every day. I can't see their lives up close and personal anymore.
Yeah.
So they're becoming different people, and I can't see that. because it's not in my
It's
face.
true. I mean, it's reality, right? When you have these moments in your life, these monumental things, there are going to be casualties that just naturally happen. People are going to fade out, or fade off. Like it's just going to happen. It's like when you get married, the relationship, with some people is not going to be the same because you don't have the time to maintain it.
Yeah.
So it's traumatic because like you want to go through these moments with these people, but leaving college, these relationships are going to stay in college. Getting a new job, you're not going to talk to those people at your work. Getting into a relationship. It's these moments happen, but you want these people to be with you, and it's the realities of like, in order for life to progress, there are things that are going to not make it through.
It sucks.
And it sucks.
You have kids, you have less time, like, or now your life is revolving around the kids, so you have to become friends with moms at the PTA or the PTO or whatever, because like most of my time is spent like facilitating my kids' social life, right? I'm married now, so I can't go out and do exactly the same things I did before I was married unless my husband comes along with me and we're doing them together now, right? Or, like you said, you get a new job and the job relocates you or takes up a lot of your time or requires you to do a lot more networking. And so a lot of your free time is spent low-key working.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's crazy. And it goes back into like, I think the like solution of it all is celebrating the moments, right? Like the weddings, right? Celebrating, going to do like a trip, or something of that nature. Like, yes, these things are happening, but you still have one moment that you can still come together and like remember the friendship, if that makes sense. Like, these things are happening, but like, for example, like Omar coming to visit you, like these things are happening. Your life is going to change, but those type of friends are going to be there. It doesn't know. Maybe we might not be able to talk all the time. Like I went to Dynasty's wedding. We don't see each other all the time. Like, but I know those monumental moments, like, birthday parties, like people come in town for birthdays, and like, it's okay. But we just look at it in those situational spaces. Like, you still can see your friends. Just invite them.
No, you're right. I think it becomes more complicated, but like our dedication, I read this also, our dedication to the relationships is really what like will affect our decisions, right? We will make more opportunities to spend those. You're right. Like I will travel to meet with our friends because those relationships require a lot more work because they're not our family members. We're not like stuck with them, quote unquote. They're relationships we have to actively work on. So I think like looking at where we are in our adulthood, once we start cutting off friendships, proximity, we might start picking up friends because we work with them or because we are doing things like volleyball, because I think you've made friends in sports, right? I'm all the way here in New Orleans, so some of my core friends are, I want to say that they're changing, but I'm starting to add people in there because I'm 1,000 miles away, right? So proximity seems to be something that really matters the older we get. And you're not just going to be friends with people who are around you, but who meet those needs.
You start to develop friends in those areas of where you're at in life. It's like, if, like you said about like, mothers finding other mothers, us finding other queer friends, like the friends that we had at certain moments sometimes won't be able to be in that space because we're looking. You also need to leave some friends behind to find the new friends that you need now.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, honestly, is like, I would not be with friends with half the people I was in high school or in college, because what I'm looking for now is like, okay, I need friends that are like in relationships, or like I'm in friends at a place. Like, we just need people that can give advice or give type of things. So your relationships are going to change with the needs that you need, and that is okay. And if those people are, those certain people that you want to stay with, you can be there for moments, births of babies, bridal showers, weddings, marriages, birthdays, like holidays, like you still have times, but it's not going to be as permanent, I don't know this word, as occasional as it was before. So it's just, my girls are gay now. My girls are gay, and that's perfectly fine. I have my female best friends, but like, I want more gay male friends that are now starting to be in relationships or, married, and, things of that nature. So Things
Is
are
that
going to
what you
change as
want?
we get
Is that
older.
what you're saying, that you want more like gay male friends who are married or who are in relationships? Is that because you want it for yourself and you want to see it reflected in people who look like you?
Absolutely, yeah. I wanted to see what it looks like, and I want people's experiences. I want to know what it feels. So I want to be married. I want to be in a relationship. I want to see the ins and outs, the intricacies of it. I think that is something that I'm starting to get into a space now. It's like I do want some more stability. I want to buy a house. I want friends that are homeowners, as well. Like I think it's honestly like at that point of like I need to start surrounding my people around people that can give me that supporting aid
That's
because it's
exactly what I
helpful.
mean. I think that's an age thing. I think we are
Mm-hmm.
now looking for friends who emulate the things that we want. In addition to the people we have who are supporting us
Yeah.
emotionally, we're looking to see what we want to manifest for ourselves and others. So we're either looking for friends who are looking for the same things we want, right? So that we can do that together, or we're looking for people who already have it so they can tell us how to get it.
Yeah. Oh, that is true.
That's
That is.
interesting.
It's the people that got it or the people that can help me get it.
That's
Like some
crazy.
emotional support of it all. It's like, because it can happen. It can happen, girly. But.
Wow.
not the side.
Well,
There's a
because
lot to unpack, yeah.
I don't know what happened, where this change occurred in me, but I was just like, whoa, what is friendship now? Like, what, it just feels like something totally different than it felt for me earlier in my life. And I think it has a lot to do with like the older you get, the more you start thinking about the future and you start
Mm-hmm.
thinking about how the people in your life add to that future. And so you see the people like, oh, I'm cutting blah, blah, blah off because I'm growing. If you can't grow with me, then, I got to leave you. But it's true that some of your relationships, not all of them, because they do all serve different purposes, some of them do end up having to get left behind based on who you want to be and how you want to be. But what's going to be really interesting, Devery, is how that changes once we've like become like when we're
Yeah.
elderly, right? And now we don't really have the time or the space to be ambitious in the same ways. What are our relationships going to look like? Are they just going to be people we are in the old folks home with, right? Like people who are like looking, staring death in the face now. Like I need someone to be afraid with, right? What about when our friends all start passing away because of old age or various things? Because it's life, right? I think it's so interesting that our motivations for friendship can change throughout our lives. And I'm very happy that we've sat here and had this conversation.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that that's life, though. You change with life. Why shouldn't friends change with life? And that's the thing is like things are going to change. If you don't change, then you don't grow, but you don't, age and wisdom. So, I mean, we have to think about that. With wisdom comes change, and with all those things, it's going to happen. So, it's something I think about all the time. Is like I look at people left or right, and I'm like, we won't always be this, which
Yeah.
is sad. But that's why I do really, really believe in just being present and
Yeah.
being happy and being, loving the people that you're around right now because you don't know what it's going to be. We've talked about this. We know personally what that looks like. I know, experiences of some people that you are genuinely really connected to, just, something happening, and you won't be able to get that time. So it's just being present. And
Yeah.
so before we wrap up, of course, we always want you all to listen to us on all of our streaming platforms. So before we give our social medias, you all can hit us up on That Black Boy Joy Pod on Instagram, That Black Boy Joy on Twitter, and you can watch us on That Black Boy Joy on YouTube. And if you would love to write us, DM us. No, not DM us. Write us, email us. You can hit us up at That Black Boy Joy Podcast at gmail.com. We have a new Instagram, so follow,
Follow.
please. And then, of course, you can follow us on our Instagrams, our personal ones, if you would love to contact us. Mine is, of course, Lord Every on everything that is _ LORDEVERY on Instagram and Twitter.
And you guys know you can find me on Instagram at Derwin King. That's DERWINKING. And on Twitter at Free Negro. That's FREENEGREAUX.
Yes, and we love you all. And like we always tell you all, please like we always tell you all, please be so in love with who you are.